thinking?
Well, I think what's important to understand about the initiative and then the DDA, and particularly going to the last point, which I will address your school mitigation, but the issue raised by the city manager that we're not sure if anything's enforceable. I mean, the reality is that the development agreement and in the initiative and the initiative as a whole relate only to the city. They don't relate to the redevelopment agency. They don't bind to the redevelopment agency. They don't relate to the school district, and they don't bind the school district. Those are independent agencies created by state requirements, state law, and they have full authority under state law to enter into any agreement that they choose. The critical thing here that nobody's said, and I think is really important to say, is that the redevelopment agency is not going to sell us this land unless they're happy with the deal and unless the deal makes sense. And what we have here is an initiative that, granted, is only part of the deal. And we're very clear on that. We've been clear on that from day one. We think the exclusive negotiation agreement is very clear on that issue. And I think that what's really critical to understand here is that everything we've done assuming that we're going to sit down in the future and negotiate with the redevelopment agency who are going to tell us, yes, you have a right to this land because here are the conditions we're going to impose. And similarly with the school district, we assume, and we do this all over the state, that we're going to enter into a school mitigation agreement. And we're going to figure out, if we can, how to actually build these schools in advance of when they'd be required. I think another really critical point to make clear is that on the 2% cap, the cap goes away when the end user, the homeowner, buys the land. The development agreement doesn't bind a homeowner. It doesn't bind a future retail owner. It doesn't bind a future commercial owner. It's in place for the term during which this development is taking place. So if the city decides that they want to vote in a 5% parcel tax to make really wonderful schools, there's no restriction on the residents of the homes in this location imposing that upon themselves. All we've said is that in order for us to be able to sell this development on the first round, we have to be able not to exceed in our infrastructure development costs the 2%, because that's really the reasonable dollar amount that applies statewide, and as Pat said, over which people will not expend dollars. So, and I mean, I'm struggling, like Pat is, with just sort of where to start on all of this, but a typical school mitigation agreement would address here land being dedicated and provided to the school district. It would address infrastructure, which we fully budgeted to provide to the school district as part of the other infrastructure that we're providing. It addresses the $25 million that we've estimated, which we understand is less than the current cost for your most recent school construction of an equivalent school to what we've programmed today. So we're really struggling, I think, with where the gap is. But our goal is to sit down and meet and talk about these issues and to resolve them. And we assume that this group of people is not going to let us go forward and develop this until we've resolved these issues. And those are DDA and school mitigation issues.